So we have to work to be better prepared, because without doubt, God forbid, but there will be another disaster sooner or later. And I was discussing that yesterday with the Secretary of Education in Balochistan, and he fully agrees. Again, in the teacher training, again in your curricula and textbooks, you can talk about hazards which converts or can change into disasters. So it's the whole issue of disaster management, of disaster risk reduction, and emergency preparedness, so that people will know. For example, evacuation routes are very clear. Yeah, I worked in Thailand and Aceh, Indonesia, after the tsunami. Yeah, so it's very important that for the next one we know there's an early warning and people know where to go. Yeah, the safe and fastest route to get out of the affected area. So again, in the textbooks, and you can do that in the various subjects, be it geography or social science or physics, talk about, global warming. Yeah, and the effects on the environment. It's causing more disasters. The frequency of disasters is going up, and also the intensity. We have seen that, the last 10 years or so in Southeast Asia, but also in South Asia and other continents. So this is again a very important issue where we're working on, and just to show you that in our communication package we work with the Mina Storybooks kits, and this is now being distributed already in many cases to our implementing partners, so for use in schools. And you have different kind of issues, not only directly related to education, but for example on wash and health, hygiene, clean hands, about nutrition issues, of course gender, and also in terms of the disaster risk reduction. So there's a whole package of short films and the storybooks being used. The same in collaboration with the Girls Guides and the Boy Scouts, particularly, for example, in Quetta. I just came from Quetta. We've been working already over the last years with Boy Scouts in having their involvement in advocacy, promotion, but also on emergency preparedness. And even, they have been helping they provided their facilities for temporary learning centers. So there's a lot of publications on those issues. During when was this again? In the Global EFA week, we worked together with UNESCO. There were billboards here in Islamabad with messages on education. There were, workshops and fora. Unfortunately, it was the same week, so we had a fallout, when Bin Laden was killed on the Sunday.
Yes.
But
they closed that.
without, we still were able to continue, our social mobilization and awareness raising activities. And the theme was again, on girls and women education. So I don't know if you have seen the publication, but you can have them. You have them. So it's our role as UNICEF, and also together with our sister brother agencies in the joint education program as the United Nations delivers one, is to support the government and all others, in really ensuring this quality education for all. So there's the advocacy part, leveraging small resources we have from donors, and we are grateful for the contribution we received from many donors, particularly also, to enable us to organize those educational facilities, temporary learning centers and transitional school structures in the flood response. But in the end, of course, the responsibility remains with the government. Yeah, and we can only facilitate, and we can provide, technical support, capacity building. And again, coming back to my experiences of the last couple of days in Quetta, we had this forum with parliamentarians and provincial education authorities. We are starting to support the development of an education sector plan in Balochistan. A sector plan is kind of, the blueprint of where Balochistan wants to be in terms of quality education for all the boys and girls, and even higher levels, if we talk about higher education, in the next 5-10 years or so. So we have been very grateful to the Australian government, AusAid, to receive funding to support this process. But as I was mentioning in the Quetta meeting, it's not us, but it's the provincial education authority who are in the driver's seat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we can support, we can facilitate, we can support the capacity building, but the provincial government of Balochistan who will steer this process further. Yeah. And bringing around the table, and that's very important, all stakeholders involved. Because the planning itself is important. We know, okay, this is the blueprint, this is what we're going to do, but also the process of consultation, so that everyone has an opportunity to sit around the table and discuss and come up with ideas and suggestions, so you will have ownership. Yeah. Then indeed we say yes, everyone involved in Balochistan, we say this is the way forward and this is what we can contribute. So I always mention, okay, education for all, but it means also all for education.
Yes, all for education. That's another very good idea.
So everyone has to come up with his or her commitment and responsibility in terms of, making a better society here for Pakistan. And as I said, I've been here in the early 90s, came back end of 2009. I'm very optimistic. If not, I would not work here, because there's always the negative news about Pakistan. There's the suicide bombings and the crisis and the conflict and the floods. But at the same time, I see huge potential. You have incredible resources, both human resources as well as natural resources. So if we all come together in the right way, there's a huge potential. And again, this is why we're in education, because we want to see that each and every boy and girl can reach the maximum of his or her potential. And that is only possible through education.
You have mostly answered most of our questions. Just 3 or 4 questions, very fundamental, that we have been reporting also. Why this Pakistan has left behind this leading or meeting this MDGs and then education for all? What do you see? Because you have been working in many different areas.
Yeah. Okay.
What are the problems they are really handling?
I think it's a complex social, cultural issue, and of course economics plays a role, and politics. Yeah. As I mentioned as an example, I think we need to continue the advocacy part in terms of a higher allocation to the higher percentage of GDP to education. Yeah. This is very important, number one. But also in certain cases we've seen that, with the allocated money,
yes,
the absorption capacity sometimes has been low. So here there's an issue of capacity. Yeah? So we have to support, a strengthened capacity of the governance, be it at provincial or district level, to absorb the money, the funds, and really, make best use of it. Yeah? And then again, there are issues related to good governance, accountability. Yeah? You have heard probably also that from the UK, DFID is going to provide quite a big amount of money for education, to the various provinces and so on. So again, what I understand, a capacity building component is part of this. Yeah? Particularly important in a global climate where money is less available due to the economic crisis. Yeah. So this is the challenge, not only for Pakistan, but for many, many other countries, to continue to do the resource mobilization, because yes, funds are needed, but at the same time to ensure efficient use of those funds. Yeah. And this is related to, of course, Paris declarations and so on. Yeah. As I said, I have seen, even with sparse resources, with little resources, good work being done. Yeah. And we also, with our child-friendly schools, We want to show evidence, demonstrate what can be done. Yeah? And as I said earlier, these kind of models can then be taken over and we can go to scale, like in the case of Punjab, where we started, relatively 8 years ago compared to other provinces. So going to scale where the provincial education department says, yes, this is a viable model and we will go invest more in converting all schools into child-friendly schools. Yeah? But education, of course, is not like health, where, if you have a good doctor and you have good medicines, you can be cured in maybe a day or a week or a longer period. But education is a longer process. This takes more time. But I'm sure with the real potential, both in human capital as well as in the resources, natural resources, that Pakistan will achieve and make good progress.
But we really appreciate Unicef and other agencies that are putting, they're supporting really government to overcome these issues. And also we have seen that your girls' education, and you are really putting your efforts that government should raise the money for the girls' education. Why, if government puts money into girls' education, what will happen? What kind of effect